and WNST into the night out onto the West Coast. And, of course, fake football returns. Never feels fake when it's the Washington Redskins coming up here, but this guy has watched fake football, real baseball, was once known as one of the premier boxing writers in America, and he also has a Baltimore background. All of the good ones do, but he is retired up to Boston, where he works for the Boston Herald, as well as can be heard here on Sundays as part of the Talk of Fame Network, along with Goose Goslin, as well as Clark Judge, who joined us this week. He was in Canton, Ohio all weekend. He is a longtime voter for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he's our pal. We welcome Ron Borges of the Boston Herald back on to the program. And long weekend, long speeches out there in Canton, but let's start the party with this. You're endorsing Bob Kraft for the Hall of Fame, right, Ron?
Yeah, I think he's I'm not a big advocate for owners, frankly. I almost always vote for players over owners, or players over anybody, really. But in his case, I think you can make a strong argument for an owner, you have to do more than just to put together a good team. And I think in Kraft's case, he's done a lot for the league. He was very closely involved in the TV negotiations, which have made them tons of money. He was, by all accounts, a very key guy in the lockout and settling the lockout. In fact, negotiated the rookie deal, went back home where his wife was very ill and actually ended up passing away in the middle of it all. And got a call while he was back at home that the owners had reneged on the deal that had been negotiated. Called a bunch of them. They still went back and forth. Finally flew back and got them all in a room, all the owners, and got it worked out. So I think he's done a lot for the league. He also, frankly, saved football in New England, because had they left here, which they would have done, he turned down $75 million to let the Patriots move to St. Louis. He could have just walked away with the money without ever buying the team. And he didn't do it, and that would have forced a tremendous problem, because if they were out of Boston, the AFC's only major market would have been New York, and they would have been forced to have either realignment or renegotiations of TV deals in a downward slope. And you know how much those guys don't like that stuff, Nestor.
I'm not going to bring the Modell thing up, but I am just in short passing here, because I can beat all you guys up about this. But it is astonishing that y'all get in a room and you vote on these guys, and really the Jerry Jones thing was about money, stadium money, marketing money, TV money, moving the teams to L.A., money, and that's revered, and we put him on a pedestal this weekend. Art Modell moved to Baltimore to save himself from bankruptcy, and he's an SOB. Yeah, I find that kind of to be fascinating, because if you own a team, the real merit in all of it is making money, I guess. It is kind of fascinating that we're now judging these guys in the modern era as being successful based on money, because the league is larger than life, Ron. I mean, you've been covering this for almost 4 decades. I don't think anybody in the Rozelle era would have predicted that it could become what it's become, even internationally. I'm getting on a plane in 6 weeks and flying over to London to watch my team play. It's kind of crazy, but there is a tip of the cap for the way these guys have grown this business into this incredible American success story.
Well, you're right, Nestor, and I think that a big part of that is about how they their business dealings change the whole arc of the game in terms of salary cap and the competitive nature of things, and all of that would have been difficult to maintain had they not found ways to grow that television money and other income, stadium money, and all of that never existed before. And look, you're right. There's no question that they've taken over the world. Pro football has taken over the world. I mean, the Hall of Fame game outdrew the NBA All-Star game on television. I mean, that's absurd. You talk about the greatest players in the world playing in a basketball game. The guys who are not going to be playing in September playing in a football game.
Ron Borges joining us here from the Boston Herald. He spent the weekend out in Canton, Ohio, and some thoughts about where the Hall of Fame is going, because I think from the aerial shots, it doesn't look like the little museum I used to go to 15 years ago. Obviously, they've dumped a lot of money into the stadium. They are really building Disney World out there in Canton, Ohio, are they not?
Yeah, they are. They're one of the things they're trying to do is to sort of get use the Cooperstown model. They make a lot of money for the Baseball Hall of Fame out in Cooperstown with all these youth league baseball teams that go there to play on their various diamonds, and they have dormitories for them to stay, and they have events that they do in conjunction with the Hall of Fame, and it's become a big moneymaker for them. And that's one of their plans. They're building football fields all over the place. I'm not sure it's going to work quite as well, but you never know. But you're right; it is turning into Disneyland. They've got a hotel that's going to be open in time for the next Hall of Fame, and they're building two more, sort of surrounding it. In addition, with all kinds of other stuff, they've expanded to a great degree the Hall of Fame itself in terms of how many exhibits they can have and did all of that. So you're right. I mean, it was about the last area of pro football that hadn't been monetized, and it certainly is monetized now.
Well, it used to be a little humble, and quite frankly, I was always underwhelmed. When Cleveland got back into the league at the turn of the century, I would run bus trips out there. I would wind up in the Hall of Fame every 12 months, and I thought to myself, how can they not have this year's Super Bowl stuff in there? Why stuff old?
Right.
I think a lot of that has changed now. When you go out there, you're getting the NFL and pro football on its best day, not yesterday, right?
No, you're right. And all kinds of video stuff, and they had a whole Super Bowl exhibition there on this year's game. The tremendous come from behind overtime victory by the Patriots, and they've taken over the Black College Football Hall of Fame, which was in Atlanta, but really didn't have much space, and they've allowed them to move in there. That's been terrific. And they're going to expand that as well. So I think they're really doing a lot of good things there.
All right, well, listen, before I get to baseball, last thing, you are doing a book this fall with, real local ties here. Upton Bell is kind of a mythic figure here for people who were around in the 60s, and, of course, the relationship with Burt Bell in the National Football League and the old line. Upton Bell, former NFL executive, you got a book on him, and it's all about sort of Baltimore, right?
Yeah, I mean, he spent his whole, because his dad, Burt Bell, was really the commissioner that most people feel saved the game during and after World War II, kept the game going, really. And then was the guy who came up with the draft, which is probably saved Lord knows how many, brought every team sport thing going. But he has a long connection with the Colts. He was the personnel director of the under Shula when they went to Super Bowl III and Super Bowl V, and then went on to become the youngest general manager in football with the Patriots. Has tremendous stories. And I'll just give you one little tip of the iceberg story that old-timers in Baltimore will remember. The year Art Donovan retired, the first game of the season, the ticket manager at the time of the Colts absconded. He was double-selling tickets, and 6 days before the game disappeared with the cash. And Upton was working in the ticket office at the time, and you can imagine what it was like in Baltimore. People were, surrounding the stadium saying, "Where's my ticket?" And it's a great story about how they worked that all out, and ultimately brought Mike Hoffman back, who was the ticket manager at the time, and he had to go on vacation for a while. But it was so different from the way it is today. I mean, they used to keep track of these things on little index cards, and then they would throw the cash. Most people paid cash for their tickets, and they throw the cash in a bag, and then the bag would go to the. Meanwhile, in the back room, he was double selling the tickets to other people. It's a great story that could never happen today.
Well, I mean, I see fake tickets floating around. I've been to Philadelphia, Ron, so I know how that rolls. But on the football side, we got the Ravens, we got fake football. We had Goodell in here last week and talking about Colin Kaepernick. This is an unusual story for the future and where it is. And my question to Goodell was pretty simple. You got 3,000 players in your league. The next guy that decides to take a knee or fight the power or dissent, it's pretty clear that you are risking everything you have in football if you do that. And I think that that's a very, very dangerous precedent to set. And I don't think that that is a message the league should be sending to its players at this point in our political history. I think it's a very, very unfortunate thing that's going on with Kaepernick. I understand both sides. I certainly sided on if you need him, sign him. If you need a quarterback, bring him in. And then then his girlfriend is out tweeting slave references to Steve Bisciotti, and I thought to myself, if I were Steve Bisciotti, F him, I wouldn't sign him. You know what I mean? Like, It's one thing to dissent. It's another thing to get personal with slave driving for an NFL owner and the pictures of Ray Lewis. I didn't think that was very cool, and quite frankly, if the Ravens pass on Colin Kaepernick, I'm okay with that.
Right. I initially sort of said, look, this is more about football than it is about his political activities or his political statements. But it's gone way past that now. I mean, don't tell me there's 120 quarterbacks in America better than Colin Kaepernick, because there aren't. Now, I'm not saying that he's a great quarterback, because he's not. He's inaccurate. That's really the big knock on him. And to a degree, as you point out quite well, Nestor, I understand why an owner would look at this situation and say, I don't need the headache. I don't mind the guy looking like Oscar Gamble, but I don't want him acting like Elvis Cleaver. I sort of get it on one level, but on another level, I agree with you completely that if this is what you have to fear, you have to, they got rapists and pillagers and, attempted accused murderers. And
bleach sprayers and all. Yeah, we have a bleach sprayer here is what we have.
Yeah, I mean, all these things going on, and, wife beaters, come on. But this guy kneels down and makes a sign of it. Like somebody said to me, the problem is he makes too much noise. It was a silent protest. He wasn't making any noise. What are you talking about? Now, having said that, I don't think that the constant sort of feeling that he and his girlfriend seem to have, that they have to respond to every single thing, is helping him at this point. It's not. You don't have to look. You're going to have critics when you stand up, or in his case, kneel down for something that you believe in. So just accept that that's what's going to happen. You want to make noise, well, other people are going to make noise too. And at some point, you got to shut up and just go about your business.
He's Ron Borges.
I was just going to say, I feel sorry for him, and I think that the Ravens, quite frankly, made a mockery of it. They should have signed him. I get what you're saying and why they didn't, but they did not improve their team with the people they signed over having Colin Kaepernick on their roster, and that's just a fact.
Well, the Dolphins could say the same thing over the weekend. I mean, when you're luring Jay Cutler out of retirement, you've reached the bottom of the barrel, I think, right?
Well, except in 2015, Gates was his offensive coordinator, so he has a long history with the guy and believes that the guy knows his offense. So at least there I could say, okay, I get it. You don't have to teach him anything. He already knows what Gase's offense is. But in Kaepernick, they hired a minor league quarterback. I mean, come on. What are they doing?
He is Ron Borges, the Boston Herald. He does not keep his mouth shut. He is a longtime columnist up there in the New England area. And, of course, he'll talk of Fame Network that you can hear here each and every Sunday, along with Clark Judge and Rick Goose Goslin. They're back from Canton. They're all Hall of Fame voters for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Ron, I want to move this to baseball just briefly because you wrote a column a couple of weeks ago. I know it's been all the rage. And, we write about personalities. And in Boston, obviously, you come into Fenway Park, everyone wants to know everything about you, whether you're Carl Crawford or whether you're Curt Schilling or whether you're Jerry Remy 4 decades later. But the price thing, he was brought in to be a messiah. He was given a lot of money. This thing with Dennis Eckersley, to anyone who is a grown-up, this is unacceptable. And, and I would think that they have long memories up there in Boston, and maybe he wins game 1, 4, and 7 of the World Series this year. I don't know. But the Eckersley thing was distasteful, and I know you took him on about it. And I don't know that there are any happy Red Sox fans that criticism becomes something, especially from a Hall of Fame baseball player. We have that with Jim Palmer here, where, Palmer hasn't always gotten along with these kids in the clubhouse because they don't know who the hell he is,
Right. No, that's part of it, and they're also Price in particular is so paper thin sensitive. He never wanted to come here in the first place, and I understand why, because of the way it is. And he wanted to go to St. Louis, and the Red Sox kept raising the ante, and finally he made I always tell my kids this: the biggest mistake you can make is doing something solely for the money. Almost always that doesn't work out for you. Because, in 6 months you've got the money, or whatever was bothering you about it before is still going to be there. And that's what's happened with Price. He didn't want to deal with any of what comes with playing here. You mentioned, for example, if he wins game 1, 3, and 5, well, he's got to win game 1 in a playoff before he can win 3 and 5. He's never won. He's 0-8 as a starting pitcher. And around here, you take on a Hall of Fame guy like Eckersley because he was a little critical of you, and not terribly critical, quite frankly. Said he should pitch faster, which he should. Earl Weaver would tell him that. And he didn't cover first base, and he, basically said, you got to make that play. But then the next thing he said was, but I've not made that play too, so I know how that can happen, but you got to make that play. And for this, he got cursed at and hollered at and surrounded on the team plane.
Surrounded on the team plane is just like John Henry. Like, where's the leadership around there? Seriously, who's running the place around there? Who's running that kindergarten?
Yeah, well, clearly it's the players, because you're right. The manager was on the flight. Dombrowski was on the flight, and they both sat there and did nothing. And I took the manager to task as well, and he was not terribly happy about that, which I don't care. It was bad, and typical of the fans, and I give them credit. The next time Eckersley was at the ballpark, he got a standing ovation from the fans. Price has not played since that happened.
Well, he's going to have to play, and he's going to have to pitch, and they're going to give him a lot of money, and I don't think they're going to put him on the trading block, and I don't know that they could trade him given his salary or what they would get back other than just taking on salary. He's obviously a hell of a pitcher when he's on, and with the Yankees sort of falling down the mountain, and I don't know that Tampa and certainly the Orioles are going to get there at this point, the Red Sox have the most talent. That's going to win out. They're going to play baseball in October up there at Fenway Park, right?
Right. Yeah, well, I think so. I mean, you never know, but I think so. But their problem is that they're a hypersensitive group of players, and unfortunately, with David Ortiz not there, when Ortiz was there, I believe that this thing would not have happened, because it was orchestrated.
And most Ortiz people believe that, right? You're not the only one. Yeah. I mean, the missing Ortiz thing is a very real thing that's gone on there.
Right. David would have said, hey, what do we do? We're not doing this. We are not doing this. You got a problem with a guy, go. And in fact, it was funny because David came in, they celebrated one of their championship teams in the 2017, and David came in for it, was one of the people, and they interviewed him on it. And the first thing he said was, look, you got a problem with a guy, you got to go to the guy. And then you got to move on. Everybody's got to move on. But you got a problem with him, you sit down with him, and the two of you deal with it. And that's not, Price has yet to speak to Eckersley. I mean, here's one of the ironies of it. He was complaining that Eckersley isn't in the clubhouse like some of the other broadcasters. David Price is the same guy who complains all the time that, what are these people doing in the clubhouse? He's full of crap, and he's gonna have a hard time here, because people don't forget these kind of things here.
Well, it's sort of a handbook on what not to do, literally.
Exactly.
Literally, if you're a grown-up ahead of time, you would look at this and say, I'm not going to accost Dennis Eckersley on the plane and show my muscles in front of my teammates. That's a dick move, you know what I mean? And that's not going to play well in the media, where I'm already struggling, and I might want to concentrate on getting some guys out and getting back on the hill and earning my money, right?
Right. No, that's right.
$1 million a start they're paying him up there. Ron Borges from the Boston Herald, talking all things little Patriots, little Football Hall of Fame, and, of course, in the Talk of Fame network that you can hear here each and every Sunday. Ron, hit him straight up there, man. You got a lot of baseball to watch, and I know the Patriots, they're going to go 19-0 this year, right? I've read all that.
That's what everybody's saying. It's so funny. There's a whole generation of people who are growing up here now who think it's right there in the Bible. That all Boston teams win championships, and if they don't, it's some sort of, there has to be civic unrest, and they've, canonized these guys now, with, in my mind, no understanding of how hard it is to go 10-6. 19-0, give me a break. In fact, somebody asked Edelman about it the first day of training camp, and he said, that's just stupid. People that be talking that way is stupid, and he's right. But having said that, look, they got one of the best teams in the league. There's no question about it. They're the defending champions. They got the winningest guy at quarterback, so they got a hell of a lot of things going for them. But like everybody else, and you know this, and you live it every year, two guys get hurt and suddenly you're not the same team.
Well, I mean, we got the Flacco issue, which led to the Kaepernick issue. We got guys missing this week, trying to get guys on the field, trying to figure out the offensive line. We got our hands full down here in Baltimore long before the season gets going. So plenty of things to discuss. Enjoy the pennant race up there. Enjoy the Patriots. And certainly, I guess Belichick's laughing about this whole Jay Cutler thing, but time will tell because the Dolphins will get together with the Patriots twice. Ron, always a pleasure to check in with you, man. Take care.
Good talking to you, Nestor.
Longtime legendary Boston sports writer Ron Borges, who once wrote in Baltimore as well as all the good ones did. Clark Judge, Shaughnessy, all those guys up there spent a little bit of time down here in Baltimore at some point. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Last but never least, any breaking news, and it's always bad news in Owings Mills. Luke's on the fields back there. We hope to get you some good news on the Ravens with Joe Flacco coming back soon. But it's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. You'll always get it first. No rumors, no nonsense, no fake news. Just subscribe. You'll always be in the know. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford. Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home with the SSV on WNST from 3 until 5 as well. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. If you need some information on our London party on the Saturday before the game at Wembley, we are doing a London event. And it'll be on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and everywhere we go, including our live stream at Facebook Live and YouTube. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.